Wondering how you can become better at running your business? Entrepreneurship can be stressful. There's too much to do and not enough time. If you're isolated in your daily decisions, have no fear. Success and balance are possible. Welcome to the Small Business Answer Man podcast, where you master the art of running a successful business using practical advice from experts who want to help you succeed. Now, here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
Welcome. We're glad to have you back again this week for another great podcast. I told you my goal in this third quarter was to find guests that would not only make a difference for you the rest of this year, but going into future years. And today I think I found that guest again because it's really about thinking about it as a business owner. What type of financial planning do you need to do? And what do you really need to think about as a business owner? Because as business owners, our business is part of our assets. And we have to think long term, otherwise you put yourself in a really tough position. And today I've got with us that guest that's going to help us with that. But Ed, would you share with our guests first, if you would, what problem will you help them solve?
I'd love to help you solve the problem of diversifying and saving money on taxes.
Oh man, I think you got everybody's attention now, because if you're not, maybe your heart's not beating and stuff, because we know what's coming up, because at the end of this year, taxes come up every year and we get in that cycle. So this is going to be a great conversation. Ed Meek is with me. He's a CFP. He's the founder and CEO of Edge Financial Advisors. He's a registered investment advisor firm that exists to provide small business owners with confidence, freedom, and hope about their financial futures. Ed's passion is providing holistic financial planning and customized solutions that fit the unique life situation of entrepreneurs and give them a plan to achieve the lives they've only dreamt about. After more than a decade as a financial advisor for a retail branch of Fidelity, Ed founded Edge Financial Advisors in 2005, intending to work with fewer clients more comprehensively and effectively. Today, he's built a team currently helping more than 300 clients thrive financially. Ed is on a mission to help over 1,000 people achieve financial well-being in the next 5 years. Ed, it is great to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Thanks, Gary. Really appreciate it. Yeah, I got involved in this in the early 90s when I got out of college and became what's called a certified financial planner pretty quickly once I realized that I didn't want to be known as just an investment or financial guy that would help them with investments. While that's super important, planning everything, and you know this, I mean, just in looking at all of your podcasts and what you do for small business owners, man, if people could just listen to a handful of your podcasts and be able to take great nuggets from each one of them, man, it's going to be life-changing for them. And that key word of what my profession is certainly financial is key, but planning is key. I mean, you're a business owner, you know what it's like. If you plan things out correctly on your business and you plan things out correctly when it comes to your personal things all around the financial situation, it can make a world of difference. Like, you start making 1 or 2 degree changes one way or the other when it comes to taxes, when it comes to being able to get more efficient in certain ways. I mean, a few episodes ago, you had a guy named Cameron on who talked about how to set up systems and processes. There's just so many ways by being a small business owner that if you make small changes in different ways by planning it out properly, it could literally, like, you could sell your business if you're going to do that someday, a year, 2 years, 3 years earlier, and be in the same place. So I love helping people plan. I love helping small business owners plan. I have experience owning the business almost 20 years. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Well, I appreciate that. And that's one reason I wanted to have you on, because I think business owners can't hear this topic enough. And it's one of the areas of the topic. It's one of them. I have 6 live domains that I work in when I work with them. And when you talk about planning, one thing I really believe in, I think most business owners have a vision of where they want to go in, but they don't have the clarity of how they're going to get there. And I love people that are educators, teachers. And from what I've researched on you ahead of time, I think you're in that same boat. You want to educate them about the topics that you talk about. So that's why I was so excited about getting you on, because financial planning doesn't just happen. And you and I talked about offline, and I told you one of the things that I always am worried about with business owners is when they think their pot of gold is only in their business. And the problem that can happen there, I want them to get that pot of gold. But if it doesn't happen, they still need to have that diversification. And you and I discussed that a little bit. Maybe share some of your philosophies there.
Yeah, if you've had success, and I think most of the people that are listening to this had some success, and you're gathering more and more momentum with that success, it's like buying one stock. You know, the one thing I realized early on when I got involved, the first company I worked for was called Fidelity Investments. And this was in the 90s. And this was during the time when there was what's called the tech boom. Now, everybody knows, like recently in the last, I don't know how many years, technology stocks have been absolutely amazing. And in the 90s was the first wave of that. And we started seeing people come in who worked for one technology company, and they were like, I'm talking like janitors are coming in with like stock that's worth $1 million back, 25 years ago. And they're just like believing that this is going to be the absolute be all end all for them. They're just putting all their eggs in that one basket. And unfortunately, there were like 4 big technology companies in the area, and one of them collapsed and completely went under. And I kept telling all these people, you got to diversify. I'm not saying get out of the stock, but you got to diversify. And I think that applies to our businesses as well. I mean, I own my business. It certainly takes up a certain amount of my net worth, but I try to take some money and make sure I get diversified out of my business as well, because it's just a good planning move. Because you may think you have the best business in the world and you can control a lot of great things, but Gary, you and I both know there's certain things that happen in the world that we can never take into account, and it can throw us curveballs, and we don't want to be left with nothing.
Yeah, that's no fun starting over, because none of us, and I don't want anybody to be in that position. I want you to get that reward. And, business exit. I talked to you and I shared with you, Ed, that I exited my business in 2012. And it was timing. Part of it was because it was technology. I was in the wireless industry. And at the time, they had lots of agents, what we call agents for different carriers. And I was with AT&T at the time. But I started seeing a trend around 2009. They started consolidating dealers or agents, and they wanted large dealers. Well, I had about 15 stores. So, of course, I kind of saw the writing on the wall. Long term, I wasn't going to make it, because I didn't want to grow to 500 stores or 1,000 stores. And now they have 1,500 to 2,000. I didn't want to go there, because the way I ran my business and how I wanted to really approach life. And so I decided to exit. But the thing I think a lot of small business owners do, they can sell their business and they can come into a lot of money pretty fast through an exit or maybe even an inheritance. But how should they kind of manage and invest that money, you think, if they do come into that? And thinking about that, maybe that's something they do want in the future, that they sell their business and then they come into a huge amount of cash. How do you really invest and manage that? Would you share with them?
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways that I've seen working with small business owners. Sometimes it's, they get the lump sum and it's all taken care of, boom, right away. But sometimes, the purchase people, whoever's going to buy that business, might need that expertise, that owner. And so there's a way to structure it where maybe you get paid over a period of time. Sometimes that's a little bit better. You might want to investigate all the different areas, because again, I mentioned taxes, man. The tax man can crush you, or you can use certain things that will help you a lot. And if you can just, on a lump sum or a very large sum of money, if you can cut out 5, 10, 15, 20% in taxes, I mean, that is a huge amount of money. And so you need to work with an expert, someone who does maybe something along the lines of what I do. You've had some great accountants and people who great tax strategies on. And I wouldn't just say when they're selling their business, because once they sell their business, they want to make sure they minimize the taxes. And then they want to make sure they convert that into something that they may be then using to start living off of the rest of their lives. In addition to that, getting to that place, there's some programs that are available that many business owners don't know. To tell you the truth, up till 12, 14 years ago, even though I'm a financial advisor and a financial planner, I didn't even know about this. And now I'm like on a warpath to help certain business owners utilize a certain type of plan that can just save them so much money on taxes. We all know, Gary, that people, when you set up something that will be good for your employees, be good for yourself, is set up these retirement plans called 401k plans or something like that. Well, the problem with those is they're great, but whatever you put into those, you also have to put in for your employees, which is fine because you want to provide a great benefit for them, but you're kind of capped. And so sometimes I see these business owners making a certain amount of money, way more than what they need to spend. Well, there's another retirement plan that exists that about 10 years ago, I have one of my clients who actually specializes in providing the actuarial tax, like figuring out the actuarial tax situation. He had mentioned to me, he was like, this is a client of mine. He had said, why aren't you doing this for your small business owners? I was like, well, educate me. So he educated me, and one of my clients was a business owner who had like 6 employees. And over the last 10 years, I've put between $200,000 and $250,000 a year away. This person has put in pre-tax into a retirement plan. That's not a 401k plan. It's something called a defined benefit plan. And these plans, literally, this client will retire almost 3 years earlier than he would have if we wouldn't have done the plan. And so that's why I mentioned earlier taxes. Like if we can figure out a tax strategist, not just with that kind of plan, but also minimizing how to pay taxes along the way, it can make the biggest difference. Because to tell you the truth, Gary, what I do, we're pretty good at managing money. We're pretty good at investing it. But if anybody tells you they're gonna get a way higher rate of return than the next guy, you better run for the hills, because investments, stocks, and bonds are a commodity. Like we know that. I can make a little bit of a difference, but that's not why people want to hire someone like me. That's not why people want to hire a planner. They want to know, what can I do in the big picture, planning in all the different facets to put me in a good spot.
Well, I loved what you talked about, Ed, because really it's using the resources of your business to get benefit. So you called it the defined benefit plan. I'll be honest, I don't know a whole lot about this, but from what I understand from what you're saying, it's helping me reduce taxes, but also it's going to give me a retirement benefit too, that I'm going to, and basically the company is funding it. Am I hearing you correct?
Yeah, so oftentimes what we do is we set up one of these 401k plans, which most people have heard about, right?
Sure.
And if you're over 50, you can put like 30 grand a year away. Like I could do that with my own money. If you're under, then you could put about 20 grand, like $23,000 away. And then as the employer, you could put money into your employees' accounts if you have employees.
Sure.
And those are awesome. Those are great. And you can accumulate some, but the most I, as a business owner, if I wanted to do that, could put in is like at the most is 75,000, which, hey, that's a lot of money. Don't get me wrong. But some business owners, if they can put away more, they would love to. So once we tell people, if you kind of got that idea in mind that you can put away more than that, then we want to explore this plan. And what we have is we still keep the 401k, and then we set up one of these defined benefit plans, and they're like brother and sister plans, and they work with each other. Now, the 401ks, you cannot discriminate against your employees, but these defined benefit plans, they don't call it discrimination, but you can do these where you can put large sums of money. Like that business owner I told you I've been doing it for almost 10 years for, he writes a check for 200 grand. 190 of it goes into his own pocket. 10 grand goes towards all of his employees. It saves him about $70,000, $80,000 in taxes. His employees are super happy because now they get extra money put into their retirement plan than they would have. He's super happy because he saves 70 grand in taxes. And now the reason why he's able to retire sooner is because that 70 grand every single year is his pot of gold. It's not Uncle Sam. Uncle Sam doesn't take the money away, and his pot of gold keeps growing. And now, actually, ironically enough, we're talking about this. he's in the middle of selling his business like in the next month or two. And so he's going to get a sum of money for that. And so these plans are amazing. They're not the be all end all for everybody. They're the right kind of plan for some people, but it's just an example of if you can find the right fit based upon your situation, save some money on taxes, extract some money out of the business that you're not going to spend today and put it into another investment, you're much more diversified, right? We don't want to put all our eggs in one basket. We got to get out of that one stock basket mentality.
Yeah, and I mean, he's got a nice sum, but take that if that's only 50,000. You do that over 10 years and you put a 500,000 in and it still grows. It doesn't sit there. You have the capability that it's
That's
gonna
exactly right. You're thinking along the right lines because that 500,000, it probably becomes 1 million on top of what he normally would have had. And that's why he could retire sooner.
That's why it's so important. I don't think people understand is sometimes they get a relationship, and I understand relationships are very important. I mean, I do business coaching, so I want people to have a relationship with me, but you have to have people in the marketplace that are giving you the things that are available to you. And that's what when I really researched you, Ed, I could see that you were a teacher first, and you have a process. I'm getting them to think about that. I mean, I do that with my Clarity Navigator. What do you want in the next 3 years? Then let's go try to achieve that. But let me digest that out of you. So then you set some targets that's there, and that becomes the key. I think another thing we've got to talk about, Ed, that's so important because the markets here in this third quarter, of course, we've got an election year coming up this year, and everybody gets concerned about up and down, about the markets and that strategy of participating in up markets while really minimizing hits in the down markets. What would you tell your clients, or what do you tell your clients? Because I know some people get nervous this time when it's election time, thinking, "Oh, I need to get out of the markets." What
Yeah.
would you?
Oh my gosh, Gary, I hear it all the time, right? I mean, some of my clients have been with me for years, so they're not as concerned about it anymore. But we have all these charts, and you could see, like, statistically, when people are worried about what's going to happen with the election, it so rarely affects things very much. And think about it. The reason why we invest in stocks is for the long term. It's nearly impossible, or it is impossible, to kind of time stocks. So actually, like, trying to figure that out ahead of time, it's fool's gold, right? And I can tell people that, but I will tell you, Gary, you know this better than me probably. I experience it all the time, is people's emotions and the psychology of how they make decisions is really, really affects them negatively, right? That's why they need people like you. That's why they need people like me. Is, for the most part, this is noise. And we have a chart that shows people what about the noise over the last 30, 40, 50 years. And all those noise, 90% of the noise didn't make it a negative effect. And what's crazy is I got clients who are on the left who, like, are concerned, what if Trump wins? And then I got clients on the right who are concerned, what if Kamala wins? And it's going to be bad for the market. But I remember, this is the craziest story. Like, so when Trump won, I'm on the phone that night with me and my chief investment officer, and I call him, and as I'm talking to him, that was the period of time. And I don't know if you remember watching, but like, the election was kind of happening, and then it was like 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock, and he was still kind of hanging in there, and everybody was a little surprised, right? And then all of a sudden it was like 7, it was 8 o'clock, and all of a sudden it looked like, oh my gosh, he may win. Like, remember, we were just so shocked that he was going to win. It didn't even matter if you voted for him or didn't. And it was just shocking. The stock markets, there's something called the futures that show you what's going on with the stock markets. They were getting destroyed. Like, I mean, they were down like 4, 5, 6% because it was such an unknown. And then by the time we could invest in them, in the next morning, it was almost break even, and the market was up the next day. And so I say this because let's not, like, spend so much energy and time on this short-term stuff. As a business owner, focus on the things that you can control, right? The things that you can control this year, going into next year. And again, plan what things can you do to plan for that in the most effective way, and then outsource to your accountant, to your financial planner, to your coach. I mean, what you do, Gary, is incredible. That's why your podcasts are awesome. Literally, like what you do, you can help people get into the right place, and it just makes them so much more effective. I've had a coach for like 15 years, and I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for my coach, because I just need that outside person telling me, reminding me of things that life gets chaotic when you're running a business, right? You just keep forgetting certain things. You need that person to continue to remind you.
Well, and that's why you need a financial coach. And we're going to talk more about that when we come back. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back.
Are you a business owner striving for balance in your life? Ready to find the answers that are keeping you from reaching your goals? We created the Business Owner's Life Domain Assessment Quiz to help business owners find clarity. You can take our free assessment and unlock what is holding you back. This assessment will gauge your well-being in health, relationships, business, personal goals, and finances. By responding to a few thought-provoking questions, you will gain clarity on what truly matters for your success and fulfillment. Receive your free personalized life domain score, revealing your strengths and areas for improvements. With this knowledge, you will be able to make informed decisions to enhance your well-being and thrive in all aspects of your life. Don't miss this opportunity to excel in your personal and professional endeavors. Take the free Business Owner's Life Domain Assessment Quiz now and unlock your path to a more fulfilling and balanced life as an entrepreneur. Just go to show notes and click the link, Business Owner's Life Assessment. It's free.
And now back to the show. Well, you kind of led me right in the question that I really wanted to ask you, because I think it is important to have coaches in different areas. And really, you kind of refer yourself as a quarterback or kind of that chief financial coach for your client's financial plan. So explain a little bit of your philosophy. We've heard it some throughout, but in the financial, why is it so important? It's important in business. We know that they have a business coach. Still, a lot of people need to have one. Ed, I'll be the first one to tell you. But why also should they have a financial coach someone just that's taking care of their finances?
Well, let's just think about the world we live in now. You just cannot be, it's so complex. You just cannot be really good at everything. Sometimes I call this the doctor complex, but sometimes for us, doctors are the hardest people to work with. I used to, when I worked at Fidelity Investments, it was an area I lived in where there was tons of doctors that would come in, and they were doctors, man. And you got to be smart to be a doctor. And I have no problem. I have a lot of friends that are doctors, but man, they kind of think they can apply, because they're good at being a doctor, to their financial stuff. And you know what? Some of them can, but I would say I'm a financial quarterback is because people sometimes know, you business owners that are out there, you are awesome at what you do. And there might be a few things that you're awesome at. But people pay for your services because they know that they need help in that particular area. And so we as financial planners help people in 5 key areas. I have like my favorite chart I created many years ago. And what we do is we help people do what's called retirement planning. That's like the most important one of, my business is worth X. I've got this much in investments. How much, if I put away this much, what's it going to look like? You want to make sure you have somebody helping walk alongside of you to make sure, what does this look like? Because a lot of times people go, I'm going to retire when I'm 60. I'm going to retire when I'm 65. Well, how did you come to that? Well, it's just because that's the number. Well, how do you know? I mean, what if the income you get is half of what, like you don't even know. You need someone to help walk through that. And you can figure some of this stuff out on your own, but it's a lot of work, man. If you're running a business, do you really want to spend the time doing that? So retirement planning, investment planning, we help people find the right kind of investments for them. Tax planning, I mentioned taxes before, that one's huge, but that's just also like making sure your investments are in the right place. Different types of investments, like people who own their own business. Gary, when you own your own business, you didn't pay any taxes on the value of your business until you sold it, right? And that was capital gains tax. That's way more tax efficient. So we want to make sure you do all of that. And then there's what's called risk planning. And some people call it insurance planning, but that is protecting your business, protecting your assets, protecting your personal situation. I'm not an insurance person, but we want to make sure that you don't like have an open door somewhere over here and all of a sudden something happens weird, an employee sues you, you have liability on your house or car or whatever, you get sued and you lose a bunch of money because you didn't have any insurance. And then the last one is estate planning. Everybody has an accumulation of everything that they've had. We want to make sure all the ducks are in order and things get taken care of in case something happens, and we're all going to eventually pass away. I'm not an estate planning attorney, but we certainly want to make sure people are structured and set up a certain way. So those are a lot of different things. When people say, what do you do, Ed? I said, I help people thrive financially. That's what I do. And how do you do that? It's by being a financial quarterback in all of these key areas.
I think that's a great philosophy, and I appreciate you sharing that and how important that is for business owners. And I'll give you a personal example. Over this summer, I'll be honest, the last 4 months, I've had 4 people close to me pass away. And the reason I share this with my listeners is because the more they were prepared, the better it is for their family. And that's the thing you have to think about. You may, and I've had some young, 44, 58, 55, and 75. So they were not all older people. The one that was 75 got cancer. The one at 44 got cancer. So you don't know when your time is. So that's why it's so important to do that planning, because you'll make it easier on your family, and especially when you talk about estate planning and risk planning and stuff. So take that time, business owners. And the thing is, I am like you. Business owners will not do this on their own, Ed. So the thing is, they need somebody like you to help them walk them through that, because somebody will do parts of it. They may say, oh, I'm investing now, but do you have the whole piece? And that won't happen overnight, but it can definitely happen. Before I let you go, Ed, because some great conversation, it always happens when I get somebody on, but I want to make sure I ask this because I think it's so crucial, because we have children growing up, and I know there's a great transfer of wealth that's going on currently and will be going over on the next 20 years. But I really want you to answer this question, if you don't mind, or at least share your views on this, is can you share some effective ways to educate our children and really set them on that path of financial independence?
Yeah, boy, this is a question I get from a lot of my clients. I'm in my mid 50s, so my children are all in their 20s now, and all my peers and people have, all their kids are now kind of starting to, get going in life. And I would say if they can take a lot of these principles that I'm talking about right now, these areas, and even if there's opportunities to be able to get financial planning, no matter where you're at in life. But if you can get started on making sure you take advantage of retirement plans at work, like I did a podcast once called just, taking advantage of free money. And there's just so many ways that you can take advantage. Like, for example, these retirement plans that I mentioned earlier, the 401k plan, like there's something called a match on most 401k plans, meaning like if you put money in, your employer will put money in. You want to know how many people don't do that because they're like, I'm just living paycheck to paycheck. Oh, I need the money now. I got to save for a house. I'm like, if a company's going to match you dollar for dollar, you just got 100% rate of return. Like there's nothing in the world that gives you 100% rate of return except for something like this. So I would say make sure you encourage your kids, because let's face it, like not everybody's like did a great job of educating their kids when they were younger on money and how to handle money. But I would say, even if you aren't great at it yourself, once you figure out and start doing it yourself, you encourage your kids to also do that because they're going to start putting themselves in a spot where they can put money in these retirement plans. They can start growing. I mean, one of the best things ever is something called a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k, where you can get money in this thing. And once it goes in there, zero tax while it's growing and zero tax when you take it out. So I would just encourage them greatly to take advantage of those different types of things.
Yeah. And if you have a good financial advisor, I would bet Ed does this too, is actually at one point we brought our kids when they were younger because we decided to start buying some stocks and getting them to learn about that. And we put so much in a month for them. I forget if it was $50 a month or whatever, but we had them start buying stock. And the whole thing was, it was about, number one was time, the delayed time, and realizing only $50 a month. But it's kind of amazing. I've got my kids are in the 20s too now. They have a pretty good little stock portfolio and stuff, not huge, but just over those 10 years or so, because we started doing it when they started getting in their teens or early teens.
That was great. I mean, I wish schools, colleges made it mandatory
I
to
agree.
learn the basics. I mean, our country would be in such different shape. We wouldn't have the kind of debt that people have, student loan debt, credit card debt, if people just understood. A lot of people don't even understand it. If they just learn these basic principles, it would change everything.
Well, Ed, you brought some real value, and I truly appreciate that, because when I have guests on, that's what I always hope for. We do a little bit of research before we let somebody come on, but I always try to find teachers first, and that's what I can see from you, that first you're about educating them. And I think when we do that, that makes us attractive to say, hey, you got to check Ed out and check his website. By the way, his website is edgefa.com. We're going to have it in show notes. We know you're doing something active now, so you can't write it down anyway, but it's pretty easy. EdgeFA for financialadvisor.com. He's on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, all that'll be in show notes where you can link to him. Check him out. I've looked at his website. It's got some great information, some great blogs on there, as well as podcast information himself. So please check out Ed's information. And if you're interested, if you're looking, I'm sure they'll let you get a call and you'll see what their plan is. You don't have to commit right up front. So you have that capability to check it out. Ed, before I let you go, though, I ask every guest the same question. It may have been something we talked about, could be something totally different. I'll let you tell me, but what would be your best advice you would give to our business owners that's listening?
Yeah, I think the best advice, I alluded to it earlier, is focus on what you do awesome and then try to find solutions for outsourcing or leaning on other people. Even if you have to hire that next employee, I'm constantly thinking about that myself too. Like, I've never had an executive assistant. That's something I'm thinking about right now. Why? Because I know I'm going to be able to take certain things off the table. It's just another version of planning. That's all I'm saying, is like, if you can get down how to plan your business in the proper way, it just accumulates, you just become more successful. And planning in all facets of life is super important.
Again, Ed, can't thank you enough for joining us. EdgeFA.com. We'll have it all in show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Gary. Really appreciate it. It was great talking to you.
Okay, I want to give you a plan of action, because I always like to give a plan of action. We're done. Ed pretty well set me up for this. You have to plan. You have to plan for your financial future. If you plan today, you're going to live the life you want to live as time goes on. But the thing is, every day you delay, it's every day that then passes you by. So take the time, find the right people in your corner, and let's get that financial plan together. I believe in that because I told you about the Clarity Navigator. I do this with business owners, and it's one of those life domains. But don't pass it by and say, okay, I'll do that someday, or I'll do that next week. Let's get it on the calendar and let's get those appointments there. And you might check out edgefa.com, because you may have a person right now that I've just given you that is a coach, is a quarterback, that's going to help you in those different areas that's there. Or if it's someone else, Ed and I would tell you, just seek somebody out. That's the biggest thing we're telling you, because as business owners, it'll make a huge difference for you. Come back next week. We'll have another great guest for you, and we'll continue this process. Make it a great day. We'll see you soon.
That's all the time we have for this week. To continue your journey, head over to smallbusinessanswerman.biz to access the tools and resources mentioned in today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with someone who would benefit from listening. That's smallbusinessanswerman.biz. Until next time, remember, when you find the right solutions, your business grows and you get your time back.